So how is everything going in your neck of the woods?
Life is happening, and I've been doing work-wise my song Divine just like crazy. So I've got I don't know if you've seen, but I have daily videos and I have daily emails, and we're working on an album right now. So
You've got a lot going on.
Yeah,
it's so fun. Nice to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Yeah,
thanks for being with us. So one of the things that I'm so fascinated, I mean, I read your book, What's Your Dosha, Baby? Mm-hmm. How many years ago did that come out? Because when it first, was it 5?
2004.
What?
Yeah. And it was a bestseller back in the day, and it just kept selling like a little bit. And then publishers did print on demand, and I kept asking for the rights back, and they kept saying, no, we want to keep the rights. But just recently I got the rights back. So I'm excited because now I can like revise it and update it and re-release it on my own publishing company so that I can control it more, which will be great. So that's another project.
Self-publishing is it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I've not, because you've written how many books now?
15.
Oh, I knew there was a 5 in there. Yeah, it's like, I'm like, there was a 5 in there. I was 10 short, but you know what I mean? But, that book was really eye-opening for me.
Thanks.
And it was one of the main reasons why there's so many reasons I want to talk to you, it's like the dosha stuff is like can you explain for people that don't know what dosha is and how it like shows up in life? Like, can you explain like Ayurveda and like the generals of it? Because I want to, and I'm going to actually add you here. Hang on. I'm going to do side by side. Yep. And then I'm going to put us together. I'm so new at this. Hi. So, tell me how this works.
Okay.
Tell me how the technology and all of that, because I know it's ancient and it's been around for a long time, and it's been tested and proven, but it's like a lot of people don't even know what it is.
Exactly. Well, a lot of us now Westerners here are just finding out about it, but actually Ayurveda is the science of life. It's a 5,000-year-old practice and it came from India. And it's actually the very first original form of medicine. So from Ayurveda came Greek medicine, and from Greek medicine came allopathic medicine, which is what we're doing now. Western medicine is allopathic medicine. And now that we're seeing that allopathic medicine is great, especially like for surgeries and when you break your arm and, catastrophic illnesses and stuff, but it's not so great when it comes to everyday living and preventive medicine.
Right.
Most doctors in med school, dare I say, barely take a nutrition class.
No, it's not even a part of their. It's deep. It's like somehow unnatural.
Exactly. Like I know we have a surgeon in our family, and when I first met him, I said, "Oh, so you must know about Ayurveda?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Did you ever take a history of medicine class?" No. I'm like, "Oh, well, let me tell you what it is." And he's like, I'm like, this is where you owe your career to. Okay. This is like a big deal. But the main philosophy behind this science is that everything in the world is made up of the 5 elements, including our body, including the tree, the street, the chairs, the birds, the bees, the grass, the plants, everything. It's that simple. It's the 5 elements. So going from the most gross to the most subtle elements, that would be earth. So we feel earth in our bones, right? The heaviness, the way the gravity works, that where we have our feet on the ground, right? So this is all earth, like the trees are rooted in the ground. So that's earth. Then we have water. Water is, we're made up, how much percent water are we? Like 80% or something. It's crazy.
I think like 70 something. I guess it depends if we're dehydrated or not.
There you go. I mean, but you can, it's in our spit, it's in our eyes, it's in our blood, water runs throughout us. That is part of who we are. It's part of what makes us up. And then there's fire. And fire, it works in two ways. First of all, it regulates our temperature, right, to keep us warm. Mm-hmm. But it also regulates our digestion because we have this digestive fire in our belly. Mm-hmm. So it actually helps to process the foods that we eat. So if we're eating a salad, for example, or something raw, if it's not cooked on the outside of the body, it needs to be cooked on the inside of the body. So the body actually alerts that fire. It starts cooking your food for you so that it's broken down into small enough, atoms or particles or whatever, they can go to the various parts of your body, Right. If you think about it,
well, it needs to be turned into fuel.
Exactly. So that fire helps to do that. Mm-hmm. And then we have air, which is our breath, right? That comes in and it flows, and it's also called prana, and you might hear it called chi in Chinese, or ki in Japanese philosophies. It's all the same thing. It's that energy, the breath. And then there's space, and space is the most subtle. And you might think, oh, this is a solid object, or a bone is a solid object, but it's not. When you look with a microscope and go in, you see a whole bunch of holes, and it's down to nothing. It's like dust, So out of these 5 elements, Ayurveda has come up with these 3 doshas. So doshas are really a combination of the elements that show up in nature so that we can more easily identify them and also treat them, and also establish a routine to stay in balance. Ayurveda is all about staying in balance. Mm-hmm. So the first, it's called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Those are the 3 doshas. Now, since we have all 5 elements in our physiology, we definitely have all 3 doshas. You can't say, oh, I only have 1 dosha, I am not Kapha. No, you have some Kapha in you because you have bones, okay? Don't tell me you're not Kapha. You have some Kapha. You have all of these things. So you're going to have some, but everybody has their dosha combination in a different proportion. So your dosha is kind of like your fingerprint. It's unique to you. There's no 2 alike. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about what's your dosha, we're talking about in really general terms. It's kind of like when you say, what's your astrological sign? And I say, oh, I'm a Taurus. Yeah, but it's then, okay, well, what's your rising sign? Well, what's your moon sign? Well, what planet is this house in and that house in? You know what I mean? Right. It's like
getting into the nuance and the detail of things, and starting to see that we are a part of nature. That's what I see with, I've been a student. I love to be a student. I love to learn. That's why I love doing, this podcast, but also take time every day to learn something new. And it's like, I see that these things repeat themselves, and like the air, the earth, the space, the fire, like they all repeat themselves. It's just a different form, like in our body form, or in the animal, or in the trees, and in nature, or in, different animals. And it's like how the combinations are endless.
Exactly. And how everything can be so personalized. It's like a flower. Well, what kind of a flower? There's all these different kinds of flowers. Okay, a rose. Well, what kind of a rose? There's all these different kinds of roses. Okay, well, a red American Beauty rose. Okay, no 2 of them are alike either,
Yeah.
You can get down to the nitty gritty. So even if someone says, okay,
what's your favorite flower?
Orchids. I love orchids the most. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, see, there you got them too. Yeah.
My favorite flowers have changed. I love hydrangeas.
Oh yeah. Those are beautiful.
There's a lot of wood. There's a lot of like earth element in that with the barky wood probably. Yeah. So it's like seeing it in nature.
Leaves.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's coffee in there.
And they're so beautiful. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do
that's
each of the doshas have kind of characteristics and qualities, or do
definitely.
they have um their own, like they are all air and a little bit of earth? Like, is it like, does any of the doshas not have all of them in it, or like how does it break out?
So the way, just for category purposes, because everybody has all five no matter what, right?
Right.
But just for category purposes, Vata dosha is made up of air and space.
Okay.
So when we see Vata in nature, that means they're dominant in air and space. So we might see, as an animal, a hummingbird. So a little hummingbird is very light, right? Air and space. You can see it. It flits around very easily, lightly.
A hummingbird
Um,
got stuck in my house earlier today.
really?
Yes, I had to open the door for it.
Oh my
Doors
gosh.
open
Well,
and birds come in.
that's so good luck though,
Oh, is it?
it's like a
Oh, good.
blessing of nature saying, oh, we want to join you, like Snow White out there with the animals, but they're actually in your house. That's
I
like
know.
so cute.
Yeah.
That's so
So,
cute. But these little hummingbirds also, they have a kind of a personality, right?
mhm.
They have a short attention span. They go from one thing to the next, and they're kind of unpredictable.
Yeah.
And then if you look at a plant, that would be a Vata plant, would be like a bamboo,
Yeah.
you know, and because it's very airy, it's very flexible, it bends with the wind, or a birch tree, very
Mhm.
light and airy. And then the Vata people are kind of like that too, they're smaller boned. They are, they could be tall or short, it doesn't matter, but they kind of look thinner.
Yeah.
They're like,
Lean and long.
yeah.
Longer lined than wider lined.
Right.
The
And you can,
proportion is exaggerated. Like if you were an artist drawing them, it would be long and thin lines versus
yeah,
like the
like
wide.
those supermodels, they say, oh, we can eat anything. Well, they can because they're Vata types, but not everybody's a Vata type. So, but they have like the bones stick out a little bit and stuff.
Mhm.
And you can identify a Vata when you meet one because when you shake hands, their hands are cold, freezing cold. It could be August and the sun is shining and you're outside and their hands are cold. That's just how Vatas are. And they're always wanting to put on a sweater or turn off the air conditioner or whatever, turn up the heat. They have a hard time getting warm. And they're very creative people too. They're fun to be around. They're spontaneous. They're the ones who always say, yeah, let's go. Let's do this, right? Because they get bored easily and they need the stimulation. So that, but the problem is what they really need, they like the stimulation, but what they really need is stability. They need a routine to get in. It's interesting because when I first started studying Ayurveda, one reason I got into it is because my older son was diagnosed with ADD. And he was young, he was like in kindergarten, and I didn't want to give him heavy medication. I wanted to see what can I do naturally to help him. And when I studied all the different healing modalities, naturopathy, color therapy, aromatherapy, homeopathy, I mean, you name it. I studied
Mhm.
all of them and I found the different remedies for each. When I came on to Ayurveda, it made so much sense to me because it's like, it didn't just tell me what to do, it told me why to do it. It's like,
Right.
he's a Vata. This is a Vata imbalance. We need to bring him back into balance. So what do you do to bring someone back into balance? If they're exhibiting dry and cold symptoms, you counterbalance that with warm and oily, right? So,
Mhm.
like a warm, oily massage is good, or foods that are warm and moist. Like instead of, cold cereal for breakfast, cook oatmeal, right? Make
Mhm.
it a little sweet because that helps to balance them out too. And just making some of these slight little shifts made such a huge difference. And then that's when like the penny kind of dropped. Oh, I'm a Vata too. Like I have ADD, and this is how Freddie got it because I'm the parent and there's genes involved. And so, Western science does match with Eastern science too.
Mm-hmm.
So once we started doing those things, the whole world changed, it was amazing. So that's kind of the Vata type is.
I think, it's interesting because like one of the things that I subscribe to is like when you know yourself, when you know the true nature of who you are, like, and what your preferences are, you can work with what's working for you, right?
Yes.
And I love this idea of using nature and balance, and that we are a part of nature. We're not separate from nature. I think in our Western culture, we want to control nature,
Mm-hmm.
power over versus the power that's within.
Yes.
And I think it's important to like meet ourselves in these understandings and just expose people to them. Like, I know your book opened my mind, and then I had another friend who worked at Aveda and helped launch Aveda when it was owned by a guy named Horst, I think his name was. And it was like those products were new, like all of like what is.
They were ahead of their time, Aveda.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah. And the smells, and I was in my 20s, but then I met your book. And so talk about the other two real quick. So that's the Veda, right?
Yeah. It's called Vata,
Vata.
Vata. Yeah.
Vata.
And, you brought up a good point, because the whole point of Ayurveda, just like the whole point of a lot of these Vedic sciences like Vedanta, is to know who you are. It's all about self-discovery. And the more you go down this road, the more you find that this truly is our purpose in life, to know who we are. And this is a purpose we all share. So we all have different ways of getting there, of figuring it out, through our relationships, through our career, through our work, our volunteer work, through the challenges that we face in everyday life. And so we all get there a different way, but we're all going to the same place, and that's knowing who we are.
Yeah.
So
and there's
really
infinite possibilities, just like you explained with the flowers and, the people and the animals, and
that's
the combinations are infinite.
Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
like in
sure.
Vedanta, one analogy they use is that, life is this huge mountain, but we're all headed to the top. So there's a million different, trillion, zillion, countless ways to get there, right? But we're all going to end up there.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah, we do. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. If not in this lifetime,
more gracefully, maybe. Like we could, how much more graceful could we be if we know that the foods we're eating and how they're affecting our balance or imbalance, and feeling more empowered, right?
Exactly.
Now, what is it for like a kapha, for example?
Okay, so kapha is made up of earth and water. So kapha, it seems like it's the opposite of the vata, right? Because they're more heavy set, they're more easygoing, they're not easily distracted, they can focus, they're totally responsible, they're so loving, but they have a hard time getting motivated. They need a fire lit under them a little bit. Now, Vadas can get started really easy. Like, oh, I want to do this, then I want to do this, but they can't finish up because they have too many things started and they don't know what they like best or what they want to do next or whatever. So their house is kind of like a shambles, and it looks like a creative person lives there because there's all these unfinished projects all over the house, right? But the kapha, once the kapha gets started, they follow through and finish to the end. These people get things done. So thank God for the kaphas in our life, right? And kaphas are also kind of the cheerleaders of life. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that, they're the ones that are the caretakers that boost other people up. They're the friend you can call at 3:00 in the morning and they're like, I'll be right there, right? The bot is like, I'm not even answering the phone,
I'm sleeping.
And the pit is like, what the hell? I'll call you back at 9, But the clock is like, I'm coming, That's how they are.
Mm-hmm.
But so in nature, you would see kapha like a swan. So you imagine a swan is a little more heavy set, but they take it easy on the water, right? And they're enjoying the beauty. Kaphas are the most beautiful people in the world. And it's mostly because beauty comes from the inside out, you know, and they have this warm disposition, this loving disposition, but they also have thick hair and big eyes and like thick eyebrows and those naturally plump lips, you know, like, so you got like George Clooney's a kapha. Angelina Jolie is mostly kapha. She's got vata in her. She's got a big vata imbalance right now because she's too skinny, but her natural state is being a kapha. And look, she's got 6 kids, you know, and she's like one of the world's greatest philanthropists and everything, you know. So so that's the kapha. But what they need is they need to be motivated and stimulated. So they need to eat spicy foods. They need to exercise and socialize. That's how they get their energy, right?
Okay.
If you leave a kapha alone unattended, well, turn on Netflix, get out the ice cream, be happy as a clam. Hours go by, you know, they're just like, this is great, I'm happy. Yeah. But what's better for them is that they meet with friends and go on walks and go on hiking, because then they're in balance and they really feel good, you know. They don't get that ice cream Netflix hangover the next day, like, oh, poor me, you know. Like, so yeah.
Kapha is can you know, and then the third one is what? The
Pitta. So pitta, this is fire and water.
Fire
so
and water.
Pittas are fiery. And in nature, you would see pitta as an eagle or a tiger. But, you know, you picture, since we're on the bird analogies, right? So you picture an eagle and he's sitting on that perch way up high, right? And he's not wasting his energy. He's planning, he's plotting, he's looking down. What do I want down there? Oh, a rabbit. I think I'll go get it. Boom, gets it, you know? That's how pittas are. They're organized, they're intelligent, they're focused, they're ambitious, they're go-getters, right? So when they're in balance, all those good qualities come out, right? They're athletic, they're competitive. But when they're out of balance, when there's too much fire going on, they're bossy, you know, they're like, they get on your nerves. They want their way, and it's my way or no way, you know, kind of thing. And they can be too detail oriented, you know, like
get stuck in the weeds kind of thing, like stuck in the minutia.
Can't see the forest for the trees, you know, they're into the details. And how do you get something done if you're too into the details, right?
Right.
So it's kind of good that they're that way when it comes to things like filing taxes or whatever. They'll make no mistakes. But if you have a pitta committee and everybody's on the pitta committee, they're going to argue about who's going to be the boss, because everybody wants to be the boss, the leader. They're going to argue about whose plan is best. They're going to get into little details and nothing's going to get done. If you have an all vata committee, they're going to be all creative and get off on some tangents and, you know, never be on topic, and nothing's going to get done. And the kaphas are going to sit around and be sweet and friendly and socialize, right? So when you have all of them together, then the vatas come up with these ideas. And then the pittas come up with a plan. This is how we execute the idea. And then the kaphas say, yeah, we can do it. And they're the workhorse making sure all the work gets done. So, you know, nature made us each different for a reason, so that we can support each other and learn from each other, right? And so you have to think about the dynamics of relationships when you go about, you know, forming committees or starting a business. You know, You want employees that represent each of the doshas so that everybody can shine their strengths, and then you don't have as many challenges.
Now, if I remember correctly, you can be one thing in one area of your life and another energy in another area. Yeah.
Right. Because, the body, we're body and mind. So you might be more vata in your body and more pitta in your mind, or you might be more kapha in your body and more vata in your mind, and a lot of times people have two doshas equally. So they're a vata pitta and they both show up in both body and mind. But
is one dominant?
Not always.
Not always. Okay.
Sometimes two, or it's like a tie,
Got it.
And
like if one is like 1 point higher and the one is that considered a tie, or is it like?
Yeah, but it's always a delicate balance. Like, I've got this dosha quiz on what'syourdosha.com, and that kind of gives you an overall very general idea about what your dosha is. But the real way to find out your dosha is go to an Ayurvedic practitioner who then, takes your pulse and looks at your face and looks at your tongue and looks at your eyes and, asks you a bunch of different questions. I mean, they'll have you fill out a form of 100 questions or something, and they can really more dial it in,
Right. And that's for food or balancing, like,
for
you said
exercise, for what career you want to do, anything. But, we have to remember that we're not always in balance. So our dosha represents our state of balance, but we get out of balance. So maybe on a day when we're not feeling so great, we take the dosha quiz and it turns out something totally different. Well, that's where we're out of balance, because that's showing up too much.
Yeah.
In general, if you're a vata person, your vata is going to get out of balance first, because it's like, a cup of water, and my vata is supposed to be like this. If you get too much water, it spills over and you're out of balance, right?
Yeah.
So that's
now, how would you say, what is your dosha? Like, do you have more than one? And like, give me
I mean, everybody has them all, but I could say that my vata shows up in like my ADD, and because I get bored easily and I am a little bit flaky, I admit it, a little bit of an airhead. So that's where my vata shows up. But I'm really creative. I came up with the idea for 15 books. So that's that's good that I have vata there. Yeah. My pitta shows up in that I can run a business. I can actually finish those books. I have enough pitta to just write one book at a time and get the thing done. So that's good. I'm not good at things like, paperwork and forms and taxes and insurance. So thank goodness I have a pitta husband who takes care of that end of things, because it just is so uninteresting to me. I can't do it, So he takes care of that end. But then my kapha shows up because, I've got thick, dark hair, and I do need need motivation sometimes. I do feel depressed sometimes, right? If I let it get to me. Mm-hmm. So I think it shows up, everybody will have it in some different way or form, but I know, like, if I'm feeling more kapha, which we're in kapha season right now, the seasons.
Oh, the seasons have, all right, so explain that, because I don't understand that.
Yeah. So March through June, we're in kapha season right now. So in kapha season, everybody's feeling a little more kapha, and kapha is heavy and thick, right? And moist. So that translates into seasonal allergies, right? The mucus type of thing. So everybody might be feeling a little more sensitive to allergens. That's a kapha thing. Everybody might be a little more like, what did we call it in school? Like spring fever kind of thing. Like, oh, I feel like I'm falling in love. It's like right around Valentine's Day, kapha.
Like antsy, like wanting to be
and I want to pick the flowers. I want to skip in the park. And I have this, I'm like in love, and, it's that way, and a little more restless. I want to go outside, that kind of thing. And that's all natural, right?
But is this, because on the other side of the hemisphere, it's they're not in kapha.
The opposite. Yeah.
So it's the balance of earth also is what I hear, that the earth has got like this mirrored effect.
Yeah. So we're talking about seasons. So like the seasons in Australia are different than our seasons, opposite.
Yeah. So what season are they in? Because that's winter, right? That's
right. So November through February for us would be Vata season. So they're just getting into that fall,
Vata,
winter, right? Yeah, they're getting into Vata.
But it's interesting how like I've been testing this theory about all systems repeat, right? So when we observe ourselves in the world, natural world around us, we see that there's an order, right? And we see the connection. I mean, math is really the language of the earth, right? And so it's interesting to see that same pattern here, right? In something that's been around for what, 7,000 years?
5,000 years.
5,000 years.
5,000 years.
Yeah. Well, and the Vedas, right? Which just came from the Vedas, which is
Upanishads,
such amazing, a text. And so it's like it's understanding how we fit, how we are alike, and how we are different. And being able to see ourselves, like you said early on, like it's our job to know ourselves. But how do we learn to know ourselves? Well, this is a great method for learning to see ourselves. So, maybe Pitta, Kapha, Vata. Is that how you say it?
Vata, Pitta, Kapha.
Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Like I'm definitely Kapha, Pitta.
Okay.
And I took the test in your book,
but I know you have Vata in you because you made those beautiful cards. So you have that creative energy, and it does play in your world.
Yes.
Definitely.
I have all three, but I am definitely, my shape of my body is definitely like an oak tree, right? Yeah. More like a swan than a hummingbird for sure.
Yeah.
So what would the bird be, or the eagle, you said, right? The eagle.
The eagle. Yeah. And then the tree would be like a pine tree, because it's very ambitious, and it's very muscular. It's very strong, right? But it just shoots towards the sky. So that's the analogy that I use. But yeah, Kapha is more an oak tree with those deep roots, the family and the loyalty. And I'll just give you my acorns, and I'll give you my shade, and I'll just, they're givers. They're big givers.
But at work, I would say I'm definitely Pitta.
Totally.
So when you're talking about the differences, and I think hearing the analogies, we learn so well as humans by analogy, and observation and practicality. What can you, all right, so say someone goes to your site, they take your test, and they or they grab your book, or really any book, like grab something, learn about this stuff, and search the teachers that are out there, because it's so helpful. What's some practical things that you can say are a good place to start?
So, well, on my website, I've got a free e-course. I have so much free stuff. It's crazy. Just like start
You're so
there,
generous.
Yeah, because that's like a good introduction. And then if you want more, I also have e-courses on Udemy that go like more in depth and everything. But it's interesting, because when I first started, this was like in the late 90s, there wasn't very much available. I mean, it was like Deepak Chopra and Dr. Lad, and that was it. And I went and studied with both of them. But a lot of it, I was on my own. And I kept thinking, this is the next big thing. I said, feng shui, like I started studying feng shui in the late 80s, early 90s, and nobody had heard of feng shui either, right? But then it blew up, and everybody knows feng shui, right? I'm like, this is the new feng shui. Everybody's going to know about this. And it's taken all this time, but now it kind of is, because, everybody's talking about it. But I don't think everybody understands it. It's a little more complicated,
Well, when you
But it
get into
doesn't
it, you
have to
start
be.
seeing how it can transform into so many different aspects. And it's like, if you were to, so here's how I think it's so cool is like the parenting part of it. Like, I'd
Yeah,
love, I know your kids are older now, but it's like how, you talked about the ADD with your son, but it's like, to learn our children and then parent them for the way they need to be met versus the way.
exactly.
I love that.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. But it's just like literally like parenting them for the way they need to be parented, not the way that we want to give them parenting.
Exactly. And also to kind of look at our expectations of kids, right? Because I know that when Freddie was little, his dad would have loved for him to play baseball and, soccer and go do all that stuff. Well, Freddie's a Bada. He had no interest whatsoever in that kind of thing. He wanted to make movies with his action figures. That's what he wanted to do. And his dad couldn't relate to that. He's like, well, I'm just going to sign him up. I'm like, you're asking for a disaster, And he got a disaster, that kind of thing happened. But Pitta kids, they love sports and competitive things and that kind of stuff. And Coffee kids, they love helping you cook and going to the neighbors and bringing flowers and what can we do to help? That's how they are. They've got those big hearts, and so you can kind of help them by focusing on their strengths. And I remember, even though I didn't know about Ayurveda when my kids were very, very little, I did know about ADD. And I remember that there was this one author, I can't remember his name right now, but he was brilliant. And he said that when kids have ADD, they feel like they have all this incompetence, because there's things that you're expected to do in school, like sit still, that kids with ADD just can't do.
Right.
So he said you look for islands of competence in this sea of inadequacies. That's what it was.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, instead of trying to make them do the things that are too hard,
not their natural,
it's not their nature. Yeah. Focus on what they can do and, blow that out to be like you be. And so I did that with Freddie. I remember one time they had to do some kind of a report, and he's like, I don't know what to do. And it was some animals or something, and most kids are doing cats and dogs and, normal type of animals. Freddie's like, I'm going to do a bat. And I'm like, go for it.
Go for it.
And he was like the bat expert in the class, and everybody was so into it and impressed, And another example was recess. He used to kind of sit alone because all the kids were off doing their sports or shooting hoops or whatever. And he's like, I got nothing to do. So he'd sit there and read. I'm like, you're not socializing. I mean, I get that you want to read, but you're not socializing. So I talked to the teacher and we started a chess club.
Oh,
so
nice.
one day a week, we'd have the classroom and kids would come in and play chess. And it was surprising how many kids really enjoyed it,
Yeah.
And it made Freddie feel good because he already knew how to play chess.
Yeah.
So he could help teach the other kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it made him feel like, I'm an expert at something. I
right. The island
soccer, but hey, when it comes to chess, you can't beat me,
Yeah.
So
and
like
it's
that.
also the strategy game, right? Like my son Spencer's a natural strategist. Was a strategist for 20 years before I did what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
And that's the eagle, right? Like the assessment, the looking over the landscape of the game and thinking 8 steps ahead.
Mhm. Yeah, that's how a lot of engineers are,
Mhm.
systems analysts and systems engineers and stuff. That's like, we need
So
that
cool.
in this world.
We do. We so need, I think seeing how, well, I have I would love to talk to you about the education system. And why is it that we don't teach this stuff
Oh
in
my gosh.
schools?
Exactly.
I don't
Exactly.
understand. Like, we really need to shift the way of these truths,
Yeah.
and teach people how they learn,
Yeah.
and so that they can become lifelong learners
Yeah.
versus like just rote. I mean,
Yeah.
education is a big thing for me because I'm a
There
teacher.
is a school that does this.
Really?
Yes, it's the Maharishi Ayurveda School in Fairfield, Iowa, and they have from preschool through college.
Really?
And they are a model for modern education. And I really wanted Freddie to go to this school. And they had a, at that time, video cassette, right? And I put it in to watch. And they need a better marketing department, because the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi came, and he's this big guru, with the big hair and the big beard and everything. And he's talking about how important education is and stuff. And Freddie's looking at him. He's like, is that the
I can't
principal?
relate.
And
we
his
need
dad
someone
was
that looks like you, who's
and he's like, there's no way, Lisa. I mean, no, there's no way. So that didn't happen. But their philosophy is that they start each school day, small classes are small class sizes. They start each day with meditation. So everybody meditates. So that's really good. They have, the day is very structured, but it's not like you go from subject to subject to subject within a day, right? You're doing one subject for like 6 weeks, and you're diving deep into it, all different aspects, right?
like
So
the whole
totally
learning. So they look at the science of the history of it, the art of it, the culture of it, they read about it, they like whatever aspect.
They put on a play about it, they do a art project about it, a science experience about it.
They call that whole learning in our model.
Yeah.
Of education.
It really is good. And then when the kids get into college, the first thing they do is they take an overview class where they look at nobody comes in declared with a major. Everybody comes in on ground zero. I don't know what my major is. And you take an overview class of, this is what this major does. This is what this major does. And then you pick your major.
That's so smart.
I know.
And they include their doshas.
Yeah.
And their preferences and their tendencies and the way they are, right?
Yeah. And then they make meals for the kids that are Ayurvedically balanced. There's a lot of meals that are tridoshic, that all the doshas can eat and stay in balance. They make the meals for them, so they're nourished. They know everybody's eating the same thing that's good for their digestion and everything else, right? They teach them things like kindness, and the whole.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, actually, and you reminded me when you were talking about being like a systems analyst and looking at systems and patterns and things. I had a conversation over the weekend with one of my swamis, and we talked about mandalas. And you'll notice I have a mandala back here, right?
Yeah.
And like the flower is basically a circle that has repeated patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, we are all mandalas.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, we're each an expression, and a totally different expression, just like our fingerprint or our dosha, and how we express. And it's all beautiful. And we each have this contribution to make to the world. But, when you look in nature, you see the mandalas, in the sunflower and in the sky and the clouds and the Milky Way, and, in the patterns on a cow or an animal in the world and their hair and stuff. It's like, it's everywhere. If we just open our eyes and see the connection, and if we could,
it's perfect. Like, that's the thing that we're trying to change it, control it, manipulate it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And what's there is perfect. We just need to be able to see it instead of trying to, like, we think we know better. Our intelligence is not to that level as human beings, and just look at our planet.
Yeah.
And what
we're imposing our man-made things onto nature when nature is just fine by itself. It doesn't need
We
to
need
be
to work
imposed
in
on.
concert, in cooperation with nature
Exactly.
versus trying to like control it.
Yes. And to teach our children right from the beginning, these good habits, how you take care of yourself is taking care of nature, right? Because you want the food you eat to be good and wholesome because it's going in you. So why wouldn't you take care of nature? So
What are some things that you do in your daily life that are rituals of practice of the doshas?
So just like the year has seasons that are dosha like, right? The day has hours that are dosha like. So I follow an Ayurvedic lifestyle. And every day I have, I don't do the same thing every day, but I follow the same routine that keeps me in balance. So ideally, um, kapha time starts at 6 a.m. and it goes until 10 a.m. So that time span is kapha time. So you want to wake up before kapha time because kapha is slow and heavy and it's harder to wake up. If you don't wake up by 6, you kind of want to sleep in. You know what I mean? You get a little more lazy. You want to stay in bed. So you try to wake up by 6. Now I'm a Vata and Vatas need a little more sleep. So it's usually more like 6:30 or so that I end up getting up, right? But I try for 6. So from 6 to 10, what you do is go to the kitchen. You need to hydrate. Well, go to the bathroom, take care of your hygiene. And then go to the kitchen, have some warm water with lemon or lime. So if you're a pitta, you want lime because it's cooling. If you're a vata or a kapha, you want lemon because it's warming. What this is going to do is there you go. Good.
Yeah.
This is going to jumpstart your digestion. It tells your body, okay, I'm awake. So start like getting those digestive enzymes going. I'm not ready to eat yet, but we gotta wake up the system, right? Also, I found that since I'm a Vata, I need to moisturize my face first thing when I get up because I've got dry skin. I used to have oily skin like my whole life, but now I just turned 60.
What?
So
you look amazing.
Yeah, I'm serious. Sunday I had my 60th birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I keep thinking like it's a mistake, like somebody did the math wrong or something, because I don't feel 60. And I like,
well, because you live in balance with the doshas. You look great. You're healthy.
It's like so cool. So
it's possible to not have to like take tons of prescription drugs every single day for decades. It's possible.
I do take my Ayurvedic herbs. There's certain Ayurvedic herbs I take. So after you drink your water, then what you want to do is meditate. Like that is your appointment time to meditate. And to get into the mode of meditation, you could light a candle. You could have a flower on your altar. I have a whole altar. I have a whole room dedicated to meditation. When I built this, that's awesome. When I built this house that I'm in, and it's a Vastu home, which Vastu is a sister science with Ayurveda. It's like the Indian feng shui. So it's meant for balance. And they say one room has to be your prayer room. It has to face east. It has to be in the northeast corner. It has to, we did everything like to the prescription for this house. And I love it.
Love it. Oh,
so you sit in your meditation room and you just be quiet, So usually what I do is I start with a prayer because that kind of gets me into that peace of mind instead of, my Vata mind might start going through my to-do list for the day and, what am I going to wear and who am I going to see? And this person is supposed to call or whatever. I start with a prayer and that just puts me in that space, right? Then you just sit and be quiet. Meditation is so simple. If you want, you can have a mantra, which is just a silent phrase or word that you say to yourself, something meaningful, joy, or God, or whatever you want it to be, shalom, whatever your faith is, you know, there's meditation in every faith has it. And so then you do that for like 20 to 30 minutes. And then you go do some stretches. You might want to take a morning walk so that you're in the sun, whatever. Eat, shower, doesn't matter what order it's in, that whatever's good for you. And then by 10 o'clock, you want to be sitting down to work, because this is prime work time. So Pitta time is from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So Pitta time, because the sun is highest in the sky, the sun is brightest, right? So right in the middle there between noon and 1 p.m., that's when you want to have lunch, because sun in the sky, fire, sun in the belly, fire, digestion is the strongest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this lunch in Ayurveda should be your largest meal of the day.
Mm-hmm.
See, in the West, we have it upside down. We have our largest meal at dinner. We kind of tend to gloss over lunch or eat a quick snack at our desk or eat while we're driving somewhere. That's not the way it should be. In India, where they practice this like it's breathing, largest meal is at lunch. And if you want to have dessert, great, have dessert, because you shouldn't be eating that heavy that late at night. And
Right.
it makes sense, because when you
It
apply
totally
it
makes
to our,
sense.
yeah,
It
when you
totally,
apply it
this
to our,
totally makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
and when you apply it to our Western, you know, theory of calories and burning calories, which in Ayurveda, there's no such thing, whatever, you know, calories, it's about energy and everything. But if you eat more calories in at lunchtime, you have all this other time to burn it off during the day, right? Whereas if you pile it up at night and go to sleep, it's just sitting there in your stomach. So that's no good, right? So during this time of day, you get the most work done. So this is prime work time. And this is time where fire of the brain is firing. And you can really get stuff done, right? Then from 2 to 6 p.m., this is Vata time. This is your creative time. So this is time when you set your goals, when you look to the future, when you dream, when you, if you need to design a logo, you know, or whatever, do it during Vata time, because you're your most creative. And you're very receptive too. Like Vata is ruled by your ears and by touch. So if you need to hear something or talk to people, that's a good time, because you'll remember it better. And then at 6 o'clock, work day is done. Work done. Now you're going to switch gears. First thing you do, meditate again. So you want to bookend your day with meditation. Once a day is not enough. It's like diving in a pool. You dive in the pool, you get wet, you come out, you're still wet, but you dry off, right? By 6 p.m., you're all dried off from the being marinated in meditation. You need to go again.
mm-hmm.
Take another dive into meditation. So you do that 20 to 30 minutes. Then you have your dinner. You can make it just a simple dinner. It doesn't need to be elaborate. Something balancing, warm, nourishing. You know, dal is great. Dal is like a lentil soup. And you can spice it however you want for your dosha. Works out great. A little rice maybe. And then for the rest of the evening until 10 p.m., it's coffee time again. So this is the time to relax, you know, talk to your friends, listen to music, go on it, maybe an evening walk, just reconnect with the family, that kind of thing. You know, it's okay to go on Facebook. I know all of us do it, but that's a good time to go on Facebook, as long as you stop all technology by 9 p.m. Stop. Like, do not go on any blue light, phone, device, anything, because the blue light interferes with your sleep. Even if you're wearing the yellow glasses, like my glasses have those lenses that
I have those
out.
too.
Yeah. It's, you still get some, you know, your skin gets it, you know, our skin is just like our mouth. It eats anything. It eats the pollution that's in the air. It eats, you know, any moisturizer we put on it. That's why you want to use pure vegetable oils and ghee on your skin, you know, not all this fancy stuff with fragrance in it and stuff. So by 10 o'clock then, go to bed.
Go to bed.
Get into bed. And from 10 p.m. until 2 p.m., you want to be in bed because this is pitta time. And if you're not in bed by 10, what happens? You get a second wind. And you're like,
True.
I can't go to sleep because my mind is so active and I feel like I got to get work done. And I have all these ideas and I want to do this and I want to, and you can't sleep.
You know what? It's so funny, Lisa, that you're talking about it because, you know, my kids are older now. They're 19 and 16. So, you know, I'm getting into the phase where I can be more in my rhythm versus what's, you know, having to be forced to serve them in a way. And you described pretty much my day. Like I'm up early. I love to get up early. I'm a morning person. Today I got up late, but I'm normally up between 5 and 6.
Great.
And, you know, like and working, like I usually finish work by 1 or 2, like, and then I'm done working for the day. But it's interesting, you know, it's interesting how like, cause it's like what feels, I'm in a stage of life where I can choose, right?
Yes.
I'm not, the outside forces are not, you know, demanding as like they were in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. So now it's like, what's my rhythm? And so, you know, we work for ourselves. So when I work for yourself, you can do that. And I think to myself, and I unconscious because I didn't even know that there was that many, but it was like being in tune with ourselves when we can connect. It's like, yeah. And then there's certain times, like I usually am a great sleeper. And if I stay up, I get that second wind and then I'm up till like 1 and I'm like, and then the next day I'm trashed.
Then you feel it. Yeah, exactly. But
right. Like I like my routine.
The truth is you're following your intuition because your body and mind knows what it needs and it's leading you in that direction. And it's when the ego thinks we know better, like, I just really need to finish this report.
Pushing, right? Controlling.
And then you end up doing it bad and so you have to redo it anyway, you know, whereas if you just waited till pitta time the next day.
And I love a big lunch. I'm a big lunch person because I've done all that work.
Yeah.
You know, I forget to eat. I'm a little like, I can forget to eat, which is so strange because I don't look like I can forget to eat.
Yeah, but coffees have that store of energy. So it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
I got a storehouse of energy. That's a nice way of putting it, Lisa. But it's like, I do love to eat my biggest meal at lunch. And as I get older, for sure, I like that. Yeah. And the kids are off running and whatever. So we have meals together, like, but I like to eat, like on Sundays, I like to eat earlier. So
yeah, that's,
you know, my parents are getting older and they meet up with us. But I just think to myself, what it would be like, a world would be like that we were more aware of these things.
Yeah. And nature is our prime example. Like we know the birds go to bed when it gets dark and the bears hibernate in the winter and they all know. Nobody taught them you have to do this. And they're not going, well, I'm going to stay up and go fishing. You know, they're not
exactly.
saying that. They know the rhythm of nature and they do what it takes. And the benefit to us when we do this, if we're in bed between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., this is when our body heals itself. This is when the cells regenerate. And I mean, this is a scientific principle and Western doctors will agree too, right? If we are up spending our energy on doing something outside of ourselves, like working on the computer, our body doesn't have the energy to heal the cells and stuff. We're literally making ourselves sick. So we don't want to do that. We need to be in bed.
Yeah. And this generation has got a challenge with the endless technology.
Exactly.
And we don't even know fully the effects. I mean, I'm curious, I'll be curious to watch effects as we see, you know, things come up as we evolve, right? As we evolve.
Yeah. Well, already we can see that it's affecting vision, right? They're all going to be wearing glasses and stuff. That's, I mean, and that's just the start of it because the eyes are pitta organs and they have the fire and everything. So that's going to affect the brain, is going to affect other parts of the body.
Parts of the
too. So
body. I mean, we are all connected.
Yeah, we really need to be careful. But then from 2 a.m. till 6 a.m., this is when it's Vata time again. And this is when we have dreams and visions. And this is when we problem solve all the things that we couldn't solve in our waking state, right? Like we could be think, what is the solution? What is the solution? I don't know. You're racking your brain. Well, now you're asleep and your mind can put everything in place, all those pieces, nice. And you wake up and you're like, I got it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need
They
to
said
be,
that Einstein took a break, and it was on his walks that he figured out the theory of relativity. And I think to myself, it's like, that's what you're describing to me. I think even in my own experience of creating the deck of cards, it's like things came to me in dreams. And then I was like, I'm supposed to do this. So let's try that, or let me try that. And so I was like evolving it. And
yes.
I learned to trust that more as I've gotten older, but I think we dismiss it as when we're younger or we're unaware. It's still in our unconscious,
Right.
you know. I know you've written so many books. I want to ask you, what's your favorite of the books you've written?
That's like saying, which is your favorite child, right?
Which one? Okay, which?
So
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
my baby now is Song Divine, which is this one. So this is my baby, because this is my most recent one, and it came out in 17. But what I love about this is that I look at all the things I've done over my lifetime, 60 years now of lifetime. And, I worked in entertainment, I worked in television, I had my own record label, I wrote songs, I was a newscaster for a while, I was a journalist for a while, I've written books, I sold makeup, I was a waitress, all these different things, that I've done. Everything seems to come together with this book. Like, this is why I look back on my life. This is why all those things happened. Like I volunteered for helping foster girls at Casa Pacifica.
Yeah.
And with Big Brothers, Big Sisters. All those experiences led to this. And what this is it's an English rhyming version of the Bhagavad-Gita. So the Bhagavad-Gita is the world's second best-selling book after the Bible. Some people call it the Hindu Bible, but it really is not a religious book. It's a spiritual book, and it's a guide to life. So it applies to all religions. You can't just say it's just for Hindus. And it's the second most translated book in the world after the Bible. It cuts across all cultures, and it cuts across all time, because this book was originally written 5,000 years ago. And here we are today learning these timeless lessons. So, I have it at songdivine.com, and there's the links to Amazon and everything. But I just been going crazy with this book, because first I wrote it in, the Bhagavad Gita I came up with this idea because the Bhagavad Gita was originally written as a song. It's a short book. It was written in Sanskrit, which is like one of the old languages of the world, like Latin, right? That nobody uses it anymore, but all these texts are written in it, so scholars know what it says. But it was written so that it rhymed and it had rhythm, so that people could memorize it. And then they learn these spiritual and also practical lessons. Like, there's Ayurveda in the Bhagavad Gita. When I came to those parts, I'm like, there's Ayurveda in here. It tells you what to eat. It tells you, when to eat, how to eat, everything. It tells you all that kind of stuff, It talks about your nature and how you find your nature. It's amazing.
I got to get that book.
Yeah. I'm surprised
I saw the videos. Well, I saw the videos, and then I was like, and I remember the Dosha because I love the Dosha book, but I haven't gotten that one. And, I do, because this is that whole, like, all systems repeat.
Yes.
And so
It's the mandala. It's
it's the
repeating,
mandala.
repeating, repeating. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like we need to see the pattern of life in all that we do. And I believe that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience on the
It's true.
planet at this time. My name is Star. Like, my mom gave me that, and my sister's name is Sunday. And it's like at the moment of our breath, we absorb the energy of the universe at that time, which is another repeating.
Yes.
And I'm fascinated by all the technologies that are basically a form of language.
Mm-hmm.
So the Vedas and, astrology and Ayurveda and feng shui, and there's just saying it with different languages, different
Exactly.
animals, different
True.
qualities, like air, fire, earth, space, whatever. It's like the same thing said, like, which way do you want these universal truths to actually teach, like what resonates,
Yes. Now,
right?
yeah, because like, okay, in Jyotish, which is like Eastern astrology, it's based on the moon, not the sun. That's how it's a little bit different from Western astrology.
Yeah.
But if you get your Jyotish chart done, the Jyotishi will tell you what your dosha is because it is in your chart.
See, it's the same thing. Like, so I studied under Beth Davis for 2 years to learn scientific hand analysis. And I was curious about myself. Some people do this for a living and they read your palms of your hands in the prints and the lines that, and all it is scientifically, it is a map of your brain.
Wow. I love that.
Your life lesson is in your like, so one thing that doesn't change, the lines will change, but the prints don't. So your actual prints tell you your life lesson and what school you're in. Are you in the school of service? Are you in the school of life? Are you in this, or a wisdom? Are you in the school of peace? And it actually says, like, and then same thing with the doshas and so for me, I'm just fascinated by these things in our culture that
it's like
that
echoes,
but it echoes and echoes. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I'm so fascinated. Like, I could just listen to hours of you lecture and talk about, all of the things in Ayurveda, and like the eating and the sleeping and
Yeah.
it's like so cool. And it's like, again, I get so like there's got to be a better way than the way that we're living. And I feel like the shifts, like, is there something, how does it show up in the planet? Like the doshas in the planet or in the universe? Like, how is that? What is that?
Yeah.
How do you see that? Like, how can you teach me to see it?
Yeah. Cause like the oceans, right, are water. So water, we know it's healthy when it's not polluted. So polluted water is going to end up in us anyway, because we're made up of water. We think of it as something outside of us and we can dump it in the ocean. But is this something that we would eat? If it's not, we shouldn't put it in the ocean either.
Yeah. I mean, and this brings up real moral decisions too. Like, I think to myself, like the seed banks and the privatizing of seeds and trademarking, like Monsanto's trademarking things, and then that are really Mother Nature, and then the pharmaceutical companies that are always trying to copycat Mother Nature, but can't, fully. So then, and then regulation around the natural way and trying to make money.
Right.
Like, and again, it's that the big concept is controlling what's naturally
Right.
our birthright,
Yeah.
as humans on the planet, right?
Right. And what's even more like insidious is the reason those corporations are doing it is for the money. It's
Well,
not for the good of the people or anything. It all comes down to the money. And we've seen in India the disastrous effects of having those GMOs and those seeds that don't reproduce, and how the farmers are committing suicide right and left, and that ruins the family. And then the widow who is left is dependent on these loan shark type of things, and then they end up in prostitution, and it's horrible. It's horrible. And I hate to say it, but the US is responsible, because these are US companies that are going into other countries and wrecking this age-old, centuries-old system, because they think they know better and they want the money. Yeah.
it's real, and I feel like we're the elders, Lissa,
Yeah.
and not everyone becomes an elder. Some people just get old.
Yeah.
And so I think it's one of the reasons why I chose to do a podcast and talk about these things. Just like this, like we're on Zoom, but it's like we're together in our living rooms and we're chatting about important things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to share this stuff. The healers of the planet need to come forward. I am so serious about this. Like, I could weep. It makes me cry to think about what we are doing and the effects. And it's just comfortable for me, really, to be a hermit by myself up on my farm, living my little world and making happy. And yet the responsibility as someone who sees things,
Yes.
to have conversations with other people who see things.
Yes.
You don't have to agree with me. People that listen to this, there's going to be a lot of people who don't like what I have to say, and they don't have to listen. But there are people that are going to be curious and want to lean into, well, what is my dosha? I didn't even know what a dosha was, or what's Ayurveda, or what are the Vedas, or what is this seed thing that we're talking about? And we need to wake up. We are sleepwalking, and we need to do what we can to care and cherish others.
Yep.
I believe that love will solve all answers and all problems. And we need to first love ourselves, and we need to share our gifts. Like you talked about, the balance of, we need all types. The teacher appears when the student is ready. So what kind of teacher are you going to choose? And at the best of it, we are all both. I love to learn. I spend hours a day learning something new. I have the luxury, the privilege, and the good fortune to do that. Not everyone does. And the best of ourselves is when we're teaching, right? Like, you write all of these books and you're sharing your knowledge in the way that is good for you.
Yeah.
And
even I think if someone has a full-time job and responsibility of the family, and they don't have the luxury of being able to, take these classes or go to the temple, like I go to the temple, just by having an open mind and being receptive and allowing yourself to be empathic, you can learn from nature. You can learn from yourself. You can learn in meditation. You don't necessarily have to go out in a big way and, take a university course. Yeah. Just be open.
There's so much free information. And if you have access to a computer, not everybody does, but if you have access to a computer, it's like, we've got to get curious. It's like, be curious. Like, I think to myself, I tell my kids all the time, because they're ADD and they're dyslexic and they have a lot of gifts and they have deficits. Know your place and be curious, right? Like, learn, be a lifelong student of life, and you are the curriculum. Be the curriculum. And it's fun, right? Like, it's fun to learn these things and be able to apply them in relationship to the people in your life, the people that you work with, right? Like you can
Exactly.
really learn how to respond to others based on their, just the energy. Like they're
Yeah.
hummingbird, are they an eagle? Are they,
Yeah.
a swan?
Mhm.
And just being like, oh, right. Okay. Like, and be able to navigate waters
Yeah.
and difficulties by understanding it. So
Yeah. And we're really blessed in this day and age with the internet, as long as we don't abuse it, or whatever. But
yeah.
because we have access to people from all around the world. I mean, just on YouTube, if you Google Ayurveda or look on YouTube and search Ayurveda, you'll get tons of videos and stuff, right? If you want to start studying the Bhagavad-Gita, I made videos one a day for every single day of this year. And you can go to YouTube and go back and watch from day one. And you don't even have to read the book. I'm reading it to you, So
You get the oral transmission.
yeah, and if even that is too much, I created a coloring book with a verse for everything. And you can just sit there and color.
Color.
Coloring is a meditation, right? And you're thinking about the verse as you're coloring and soaking it in,
I
little
mean,
by
there's so
little.
many ways. We have to know how we learn best too. It's like when we know, like I'm a talker. I
Yeah.
love to be social. I like to do things in groups, and I can stick. It took me 10 years to write my book because I was like slow and steady wins the race. Like I'd
Mhm.
have moments of inspiration in the line picking up my daughter at school, which is like during the creative time, right? What is that, like 3 o'clock?
Yeah, totally.
I'd be like, I'd be
A
like,
lot of time.
so it's like being in rhythm with ourselves instead of trying to fight ourselves all the time
There you
is the life, is the part that we need to. So I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
How do you describe love? Like, what's your definition of love?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is God is love. We hear that, but then, like, what does that mean? What does it mean? So, love is the thread that ties all of us together. It's the one thing we all understand at a very deep level. No matter what language we speak or whatever, we recognize love. We recognize a mother holding her baby as love, right? We recognize two people getting married as love. We recognize our, taking care of our little sick kitty cat. That's love. We know love. Love is who we are. It's the fabric of our being. It's the glue that bonds us all together. So, God in Vedanta is Sat Chit Ananda, or the Brahman, the impersonal God. The energy is Sat Chit Ananda, which is existence, consciousness, bliss. And it has to have all three of those things. And Ananda is bliss. And you can't have bliss without love. Love is a big part of bliss. That's, that's love is who we are.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I love you. Thank you so much.
I
for
love
being
you. Yeah, I love your cards. I love all the work that you do. I love how you connect people. You're an inspiration. You are a star, Miss Star. Your mom named you right.
She did name, I have always told my mom, I'm like, you name me Star, and I've been spending my life trying to live up to it. I said, it's like,
You got it. You shine, baby. You shine. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I want to say goodbye.